Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we will be looking at the word Boucan. Now Boucan is the word that is used to create the word Buccaneers. So the concept is to use a word from the Creole culture on the small island of Saint Lucian near Barbados, Martinique and St. Vincent, and to situate that word or that phrase from try and figure out its origin or what it means. So today we'll be using the word Boucan, which Buccaneers come from. So the term Buccaneers comes from the French word Boucan, which means to grill or to smoke meat or to dry meat over a fire. And that was what the sailors used to see the hunters doing on the islands, was a fire, and so they considered they were Buccaneers. But before we get into all that, we are going to briefly discuss the Buccaneers from a historical context. Then we will learn how the word Boucan is used in Saint Lucia Creole, in the Saint Lucian Creole, and how to use Boucan properly in a Creole sentence. So thereby we will provide context for Boucan. So we will also learn about the traditional way of smoking meat over a fire pit. So let us begin. The Buccaneers got their name from the word boucanier, from French word boucanier. In the beginning, they were just the ordinary European settlers and adventurers, mostly Dutch, French and English, who inhabited on Hispaniola and some other nearby Caribbean islands. Most of them were hunters who earned their living from selling smoked meat to passing trading ships. And they killed wild cattle or wild boar, which were either abundant or shipwrecked on those islands. They were often seen by the passing ship, so that Boucan was seen, that fire was seen by the passing ships. And then and those fires, as the Tupi people, which is a native tribe from the Caribbean, the hunters originally used some wooden frame to smoke their meat, and they called it Boucane. So the passing ships called them Buccaneers from the word Boucane, and that's how the Buccaneers got their name. So the word Buccaneers came into popular use after a 1684 publication, Buccaneers of the Americas, by the Dutchman Alexander Esquemeling. So now he popularized that in his 1684 book, Buccaneers of the Americas. It was written in Dutch, but that's the English translation for the title. The earliest Buccaneers spread from Western Hispaniola, present-day Haiti, which you have Haiti and the Dominican Republic now on that island, which used to be known as Hispaniola. They were there in the early 17th century, so around the 1650s and so forth. So they spread to the island of Tortuga from Hispaniola after setting up base originally in Hispaniola. The French governors of Tortuga were liberal, and they issued them commissions to attack Spanish maritime trade. In other words, that's called a letter of marque, which the privateers, corsairs and buccaneers received from foreign crowns like the French, the Dutch and the English, giving them the right or the go-ahead to attack Spanish shipping or Spanish colonies and to take the plunder on behalf of these crowns. So the earliest Buccaneers, like I said, they also set up a base in Jamaica after they'd moved to Tortuga, after the British had conquered Jamaica from the Spanish. So the French, the British and the Dutch were jealous of all the looting that the Spanish were doing on the Spanish Main in the Caribbean, from all the way from Hispaniola down from Mexico into Venezuela on the Spanish Main, and they issued letters of marque or asked independent sailors to go ahead and attack on their behalf, and these were considered privateers, corsairs or buccaneers. So this means basically was subjective as well, because sometimes the crown used to say, well, no, these are not my buccaneers, I never give them a letter of marque, and sometimes the buccaneers never had a letter of marque, faked it and just attacked the Spanish ships anyways. And eventually they started attacking each other. They would just say they didn't know it was a French ship or a Dutch ship, and they would attack, right? So that's how Buccaneers, pirates, you know, you never know which one it was, corsairs. So it was a wild area of anything goes. So the chief bond between, they call themselves the Brethren of the Coast, that is the Buccaneers. And they just basically styled themselves on stating that they attacked any Spanish ship and plundered and shared it equally among themselves. And then they had their rules of equality, and they chose their captains and who was their leaders. And they also stranded mutineers, and they had their rules. So they at this point, the Spanish, like I said, were moving enormous wealth from the 16th to the 18th century, transported gold, silver, and many other valuables and treasures from the New World to their homeland, and that is what sparked the idea of the Buccaneers, to funded by foreign other crowns like the French, the British, and the Dutch, to attack Spain. Many of the early buccaneers were usually escaped slaves, natives, poor white servants, former soldiers, and logwood cutters from the Campeche coast, which is in present-day southern Mexico. Remember that word Campeche, because we were in another video we're going to discuss Campeche, which was used for dyeing cloth. Anyone who was unhappy basically with their lot in life and wanted to seek better would probably join a buccaneer or join a pirate ship. Sometimes when the buccaneers conquered or attacked other ships, if there were slaves on board, if there were servants on board, they were given the opportunity to join them. They exercised a democratic discipline, like I said, among themselves, and they elected the captains, and they shared the plunder equally among themselves, giving the captain a bigger share, and they even had an insurance scheme for those who got injured during attacks. So they attracted to their ranks even some wealthy men like who were seeking glory and adventure, fame and recognition, such as William Dampier, Lionel Wafer, Basil Ringrose, Francis Drake, and the most famous of them all, Henry Morgan. Morgan Bay in Jamaica is named after Henry Morgan. He's the most famous of them all. Henry Morgan attacked Panama, which was at the time the chief city of Spain's American empire. But what he did with the Buccaneers, on the return journey, he deserted his fellow Buccaneers and absconded with most of the booty. It is said that he took it to England, gave it to the Queen, and then they knighted him. But he definitely mutinied and abandoned them. He's even ended up back in Jamaica as a vice governor eventually. I'm surprised nobody even got rid of him for that. And he turned on them, eventually trying to get rid of the Buccaneers after. But he probably had this scheme from the beginning when he came from England into the Caribbean. Eventually, as in all things, the Buccaneers became outlived, and their use to their crowns was not necessary anymore, because the crowns now, the countries had their own navies and their own captains and their own ships, and then so they started hunting them down as pirates. But these stories influenced such important authors as Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travel, Daniel Defoe in Robinson Crusoe, and Robert Louis Stevenson in the Treasure Island books. So now that we've given a basic rundown about buccaneers, we're going to look to explain a little bit about smoking the meat. So to smoke meat, you build a fire pit by encircling it with rocks and stones. Then you cut 4 sticks about 3.5 to 4 feet tall with a V-shaped top, which are pitched and stuck into the ground vertically to make a square shape. 2 horizontal sticks are placed into the V-shaped tops to create a frame above the fire pit. Then smaller sticks are placed horizontally across the length or width of the square to hold the meat above the fire pit. The meat is placed on the rack of sticks, and green wood is used as to make smoke and not a blazing fire. Wide leaves like a banana leaf or a taro leaf or balize, which is a family of the Heliconia family, are placed on top of the meat to trap the smoke into the meat, preventing the smoke from escaping, thus smoking the meat properly. In Saint Lucia, now that we've done that, we're gonna learn about how to use Boucan Saint Lucia style and learn some sentences in Creole. So in Saint Lucia, un Boucan is a burning fire. Imagine a campfire. So almost like what the passing ships saw, a blazing fire, a Boucan, a Boucane, and they called it a campfire or a fire where they were smoking meat. But any idea of seeing a fire like that would be a Boucan in Creole or Saint Lucian Creole. A farmer clearing a field, collecting debris into a pile and set it ablaze would be a Boucan A campfire on the beach would be a Boucan So in its use, we can say a Boucan I see a Boucan Moi ouais un Boucan I made a Boucan Moi fait un Boucan I will make a Boucan Moi kai fait un Boucan So this is basically Creole use of the wood. I will make a campfire, moi kai fait un Boucan Now, to smoke meat in Creole would be to parfumer viande. That is, the French parfumer is fragrant, or to smoke that meat into a fragrance. And the viande, of course, is meat. So literally translated, to smoke meat on top of a pit fire in Creole would be to parfumer viande en l'air en fouillé buffet, not a Boucan The pit fire is fouillé, right? In French, F-O-Y-E-R, fouillé. So to smoke meat over a pit fire would be to parfumer viande en l'air en fouillé buffet. So this is basically it. Boucan would be like a campfire. You can see it from a distance, kind of a blazing fire. A pit fire is a fouillé, and a smoked meat would be viande parfumée or parfumé viande. So basically, this is it for Boucan and Buccaneers. If you like the content, please hit the like button. It helps with the algorithm, and look forward to hearing more.